Welcome! I'm Michelle Anderson, the founder of Clarinet Mentors. Today I want to talk about how to properly tune your clarinet. If you play in any group of other musicians, or even just along with a keyboard, you're going to want to make sure that you're in tune. There is a couple easy ways to do this, and there's also some notes that you should be aware of that on most clarinets have tendencies to be a little bit out of tune. In fact, I've made a little worksheet you can download. If you look in the description written right underneath this video, you'll find a link to it. And that will let you know in general some of the notes on clarinet that tend to be out of tune. Now keep in mind every instrument's different. So although there might be tendencies on most clarinets, your own instrument's a bit unique, and you might want to work with a tuner to take a look at how your own instrument plays, just so that you get really familiar with it. One of the tools that you can use to check how the instrument that you have is playing is a tuner. And there's a few options for this. What I have here is a basic, simple chromatic tuner. You can get them online through Amazon or someplace like that, or from any music store. And they range in price, but a basic one that'll do the trick for you is usually around $25 or so. What this will allow you to do is play any note, and it will tell you whether you're in tune or a bit low in pitch, which we call flat, or a bit high in pitch, which we call sharp. Now, the clarinet is in the key of B flat, at least the common clarinet that most of us play, and that means that when we finger our C, it comes out as a B flat on piano, which is called concert pitch. A lot of tuners will let you adjust it so that, for example, this one, I can key it for a B flat instrument, and then when I play my clarinet C, it'll show up on here as a clarinet C. However, if your tuner doesn't have that adjustment, just keep in mind that when you play your C, it's going to show up on the tuner as a B flat. That's not terribly important. What is important is that you're in tune, whichever note you're playing. Now, there are also many apps available that you can put on your computer or on your iPad or your phone, whatever gadget you have, that can allow you to carry a tuner around with you, and that's a nice option too. For today's demonstration, just so I'm not trying to play and hold my tuner up in one hand, I'm using an on-screen version that I found, and it will be similar to any other model that you have. It'll give you a sense of how I use the tuner to get my instrument in tune. In a moment, I'm going to turn on my tuner and show you exactly how I would use it with my clarinet. But before we do that, I just want to cover some basics of clarinet tuning that will help you before we dive into the tuner. Clarinets are actually designed to play sharp. That means to play a little bit on the high side. The reason for that is our pitch is very much affected by the temperature of the room that we play in. The warmer the instrument gets, the sharper it goes. So of course, if you're playing clarinet with lots of hot air from your body, which you should be using really good air support, your instrument will tend to get sharper and sharper as you play until it reaches its fully warm temperature. I find that if I'm in a room full of a bunch of musicians and the room gets hotter and hotter throughout the rehearsal, which can happen, my instrument's continually going sharper and I need to make adjustments throughout the rehearsal. Now, odds are if it's wind instruments, they're all going sharp with me. But if you're in a group with string instruments or piano or percussion or something that's set, you're going to be rising above them and you're going to need to make adjustments. Now, if you're in a very cold space, your instrument will go flat. And the reason that they make clarinets deliberately designed to be sharp is so that if at normal temperature it's a bit sharp and you're in a cold room and it lowers it, hopefully you'll still be in tune. The way we make an instrument play lower is to make it bigger. The way we make it play higher is to make it shorter. So let's think of a little piccolo and a tuba, right? The giant tuba, of course, is one of the lowest instruments in a band or orchestra because of its size, and the little piccolo plays very high. When we want to make our clarinet tuned lower, we're going to make it bigger. And the place that we usually start with doing this is this space between our barrel and the joint just below it. And what I'm going to do, if I want to make my instrument a bit lower, I'm actually going to pull this out a bit. Now, we never want to pull at the mouthpiece, but the barrel's actually designed to pull out a little bit. And as soon as I do that, it's going to make all of my notes play a little bit lower. Now, you're going to have to experiment a bit with this, but when we pull the barrel here, although it affects the whole instrument, it will especially affect the notes that we play closer to the barrel, our left hand notes. So anything that's played only with our left hand will be most affected by that. What I find is if my instrument's playing really sharp, I sometimes also pull a little bit out in my middle joint. Now, we have to be a little careful when we pull our middle joint, of course, because we have this thing called the bridge key here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. The bridge key is this little metal piece right here that connects our two joints. And it's really important that those two are lined up straight for it to work. So we don't have as much room to pull there, but when I pull out here, it gives me some extra lowering tendencies for the notes that use my right hand. And that's useful because when we have the register key on and we're playing our right hand higher notes like a C, a D, an E, and an F, they tend to be sharper on many clarinets. And so pulling here lowers them a little bit. Now I know some people who also pull their bell out a little bit, and that helps the pinky notes that have most of your fingers down. So you can experiment with this and decide, do you want your bell in? Do you want it out? So you start with the barrel and work your way through there. So I'm going to get a tuner out and we're going to see how I might use these different tuning mechanisms with a tuner to get my instrument as in tune as possible. I have a tuner set up on my computer so that I can record it so you can see what I'm seeing. Here's an example of how we might try tuning our clarinet. Now, depending what group you're in, you may tune to a particular pitch. Most orchestras tune to a concert A, which would be a B on clarinet. Many bands tune to a concert B flat, which will be our C. So I'm going to use a clarinet C right now just for my sample, but this works for any note. I'm going to start by tuning my low C. That's a left-hand note, and it's most affected by pulling my barrel. Now remember, I said most clarinets are designed to play sharp, so my expectation is this might play a little bit sharp. Let's see what happens as I play that note. We can see that it's showing as a little bit sharp. I haven't been playing my clarinet for a long time, so it's not as warmed up as it would be after I've been playing in a while, but it's a little bit sharp. So I'm going to pull my barrel about 1/2 millimeter. So I'm just pulling this out a little bit. Now, actually, that's more like a whole millimeter. That might be too much. Let's test it and see if that's good or a bit too low. So that one shows up as clearly too low. So I've gone too far. No problem. I'll push it in to about halfway. So I do have it pulled out a little bit, but not very much. And let's try that with the tuner and see if I can get this note in tune. That's pretty good. It's hovering a little low, but almost right in tune. I'm going to call that good for right now, and I'm going to go an octave higher to do my higher C. Now my experience is that sometimes this note tends to be a little bit sharper. So let's just try it out and see where it is right now. So you can see this one's a little bit sharper than my low C was. So what I'm going to do now is pull out a little bit at the halfway point here. And again, I'll pull about 1/2 millimeter. I'm going to make sure that I'm lining my bridge key back up properly as I put it together. And let's see how this note looks. That's much closer. This particular tuning program that I have will fluctuate a little bit back and forth, which is normal, but it's as long as it's staying very close to that center line, I know I'm basically in tune. So when I pulled at the barrel, I affected mostly the left-hand notes, but I did affect everything. And then I check out some of those right-hand notes, and I pull a little bit more right here. Some people will also pull a little bit further out there, but that gives you a sense of how you might tune. Now, if you're sitting in an orchestra or a band and you don't have a tuner in front of you and you're just tuning to another instrument, I still think it's a great idea to do the 2 octaves so that you tune at the barrel first and then check some of your right hand notes, and if they're a little bit sharp, you're going to pull a little bit more at the middle joint. Now you'll see on the attached handout some tuning tendencies of the clarinet. Your own clarinet might be different, but they're useful to know. For example, the notes that we call the throat tones, that's kind of from your open G, the G we play with all the holes uncovered, to the A and the B flat. Those are quite sharp on many instruments. I do have a video on adding resonator fingers to the B flat and the A, which make them sound better, but also bring the pitch down again. So that can help you with those notes to regulate them a little bit. Your very, very lowest notes, all your fingers down, your low E and your low F, those tend to be flat. And it's a little hard to boost them on most instruments, but we do what we can with air and embouchure to try and raise the pitch a little bit. On many clarinets, in the high register, some of those notes tend to be sharp, although this varies from brand to brand. So you really probably could sit down with a tuner and just slowly play every note on your instrument and take note of what notes tend to be sharp, what notes tend to be flat. And in fact, on most clarinets, we have a couple oddball notes, just notes that play out of tune. If you have one that strays quite a bit from your pitch center, a good repair person can definitely help adjust your tuning. If one note's suddenly way too sharp and you've just opened up a key, it could be that key's opening too far, and just by bringing it down a bit, you'll be able to adjust the tuning. Sometimes it's a little bit more intricate. It's working with your tone holes to slightly adjust them, adjust the size so that your pitch is different. But if you have one note that's really standing out from the others and you'd like to get it fixed, I'm sure a good repair person can help you with that. Now, your very, very highest notes in the high register are designed to be sharp, and they often are sharp. However, with less experienced players, they often play flat. And that's not necessarily an indication of how your instrument's tuned, but probably more an indication that your tongue position might be low in your mouth. And I do have other videos that talk about this, but just briefly, we would like to be having our tongue high in our mouth as if we're saying the word he when we play. That raises our tongue up high and it brings the pitch up. If I take my high C and I go he, ah, e, you'll hear how my pitch changes. So a lot of people play flat in those upper notes just because their embouchure isn't quite set. So if you find those top few notes are really high, then you should experiment with imagining that you're saying he. So your lips say O and your tongue says he. It's a weird combination, but that can help you play in tune. I hope you've enjoyed this mini tuning video, and I always love to hear from you. If you have some comments about tuning or any clarinet questions, please write them in the comments box right underneath this video. I check in with them about twice a week and I'll answer your questions there. I also invite you to join my Clarinet Mentors community. It's totally free. You go to www.learnclarinetnow.com. I send out a newsletter every 2 or 3 weeks that has a video, like the one you're watching right now. And I also have all my favorite clarinet recommendations. Now, I sometimes have special events that I can invite you to, online clarinet workshops or interviews with other clarinet masters that I think you would find interesting. And sometimes I'll let you know about special clarinet offerings that I have for you. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you enjoy other Clarinet Mentors videos.